So sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
I
Thanks,
literally,
Trace.
I literally like send a like. I had a canned response like detailing. Here are all the things that I need in the therapist. Here are all the things that I've been through: parentification, like PTSD, CPTSD, panic disorder, like these. And like, if you don't understand this, can't be my therapist. And that really helped me filter getting a really great therapist. Yeah, but parentification. So parentification is where like at a very young age, you are like, you're just experiencing a role reversal of parenthood. So like what a parent should provide, you know, like non-inclusive, not exclusive of gender is the word I'm looking for.
Right.
Doesn't matter. It's just parenting, right? Parenting is really all about attunement. It's like, how do I attune to this baby sponge life that's like goo goo ga? What is the world? Like, I don't know what's purple. I don't know what is like safe. I don't know what is like play. I don't know what work or when or time. And a parent's supposed to be like, oh, right now you're like a handful of brain cells, baby. So like, it's okay to be curious, but like, here's what that is. Parentified would be like, what do you think is the meaning of life? And you're like, I don't know. I'm just like a bag of cells. And they're like, well, you need to grow up. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And so then what happens is you start walking around and these people, these adults are like, you need to be the man of the house, or like, you need to be the eldest of the house.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing them do things like grind really hard and like taking any job that they can and being upset that like they don't have time for da-da-da, like experiencing a lot of like just like stress and anxiety and not setting boundaries. So then you start to pick that up. So that's what happened. That's what we talk about when we say that we grow up just like our parents.
Okay.
And
we
then
take on their stresses
yeah,
as our own.
yeah. And then some of that boundary setting that I think a lot of like especially first gen Asian Americans experience, especially if you're poor, you grew up like not with a lot of money, you probably experience parentification because like there's also that cultural piece, right, where it's like you're supposed to help in the house and you know, be a part of the family, and we all work together, and like that I'm still an advocate of. I'm team the village. I'm team the village, but we have a really hard time setting that boundary of like, okay, but like whose role is who in this village? Because there needs to be a distinction, and like now you're taking on, and so kids who are parentified tend to be people who are misattuned to their emotion. That usually goes hand in hand. So it's no surprise to me that it wasn't until like, it sounds like more recently in your adult years that you're able to have that emotional attunement with yourself, like, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and recognizing like, when is it okay to be safe with my emotions? Because from a really young age, I taught that there was no room for my emotions.
Right.
Like if emotions don't put money on they don't put food on the table.
No.
So, but your inner child, you know, still like, I have thoughts. Like, I have feelings.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
That is so unbelievably real, and I would challenge anybody to like, you know, look back, especially if you're Asian American, first generation and beyond. You know, I challenge you to look back and not see some of these things within yourself. Also identify. So on the other side of your story, you said your dad suddenly moved to Oregon.
Yeah.
I did that exact same thing.
Oh, you did that?
I did that.
Where did you move?
So I went to Beaverton.
Oh, my family's in Clackamas.
Okay.
It's so funny when like I talk to people who like, it's just because Oregon is, you know, it's just Oregon. Oregon's great. It's so beautiful. PNW is so stunningly beautiful.
Like a week out of the year, it's the most beautiful place on earth.
Right. Yeah. They just, but also I'm like, you know, like there's not a lot going on in Oregon other than Portland. So to hear someone from Beaverton, Clackamas, Salem, I'm like, what's up, Oregon? Okay. But yeah, you're in Beaverton.
Yeah. So, you know, I'll tell you the reason why I left, right? Because I had been doing music for my whole life. And it was early 20s. I just looked back for the first time and asked myself some questions that I should have been asking on the way up, right? Because I shouldn't should myself, but I did. And all of a sudden, nothing had meaning because I had just put my head down and grinded for my whole life. And at that point, because I was not in tune with my emotions, because it was just me and my mom, because, you know, even though my friends were my family, I was just like, something within me told me I just needed to go. I just needed to travel.
What was that grind?
Music, violin, specifically.
That's crazy because I feel very similar. Because I think we've talked about this in events, but it's always like very loud and hella people. Yeah. But I also grew up I was working on music. Like I was grinding because I was like working part-time, but like I was going through art school. Like I went to an arts high school. I was always in performance, always. Then I picked up all the things, music theory, songwriting, like, but at the time that I was about to hit my 20s, I was like, I must go. And that's when I went to Washington.
Yo. Okay.
Yeah, but you were grinding in that way. I mean? I do see what you mean.
That whole journey for me also, it both built my confidence in who I was and how I handled things, but it also tore me down because I was not ready to go out and sort of meet like people who had like a lot of narcissism, people who
like in the industry, you mean?
Not just in the industry, but just people I mean, like I shacked up with like a random person just to move out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like I met somebody online.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Yeah, simpatico, right? And then I moved into her pad. And that's how I got to Oregon. You know what I mean? But I think that without the proper tools, it's easy to go down a path where you are not so confident in who you are when you come back. So you came back to meet a great challenge. I went there and I lived out my life and then came back to the great challenge of restarting and then looking back at all the mistakes I had made when I was gone. But at the same time, I really felt like I needed to do that.
I hella feel you, Alan.
I really needed to fuck up, and I really needed to be held accountable in my own eyes, because while I'm home, I have the most tiger doting, like dragon mother, super gentle, super sweet, very loving, but also, you know, I had to take care of my mom's emotions, right? My mom, you know how it is. Our parents did not have a lot of support in mental health. So I ended up having to take on everything that she felt, right? And I was basically her best friend, you know, and still kind of am. So that was kind of my journey up to that point. And then I had to rebuild, and find that confidence that I had in myself. So you go up, you get knocked down. You go up again, you get knocked down. But the work that you do in between is what really stays, is what really, in my opinion, right? That's the work that literally builds your self-confidence.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you was, because I've also noticed that you are really comfortable in taking your time. You're really comfortable in being calm when you need to make decisions about like how you're going to act in public. Yeah. I see that a lot. And we were just talking about
That's so
this.
interesting. That's a new thing for me though.
Really?
It's very, very new. It's like, I would say probably like in the past like 6 months new.
Really?
I guess in nailing that. Like I think I've been trying to practice it, but yeah, I think it's like a very new
I think
thing,
that while we're building these skills, we don't give ourselves credit.
It's true.
Until it like becomes real. Yeah. And we only see it as real when we think it's good enough.
I'm also an Aries. So if you read like, you know, Aries people are very like, I either like it's 0 to 100. Either I nailed the goal or I haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
That's just how I operate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, that's part of it too. Like the whole perfectionism.
Yeah.
Like it's not worth it.
But also we should give ourselves more credit for real.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, like part of that self-esteem building is like, okay, so I just started my new fitness journey, and I've been getting on the bike like so far in 8 days. I've gotten on the bike 6 times.
This is a real bike.
No, it's a stationary bike. I mean,
but
it's
a real
like a
Peloton.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a stationary setup, and I just put my bike on it. And
is it the Peloton?
No.
Okay. No, it's okay.
It's not
I'm not team Peloton.
But if any, I mean, y'all know Jordan, right? So Jordan's our bike guru. He's the man. So he lent me his setup.
Oh, lovely.
And
Shout
I've been on it like an hour a day, 40 minutes, stuff like that. And I feel that, you know how you okay. You know how when you're like a little boy,
Yeah, yeah.
you see like other men and you see like buff dudes, and you're like, oh, that becomes like an ideal because of society, right? But then along the way, the important part is like, well, how do I get myself to that, or do I even want to, right? And you grow up and you're like, you have all these preconceived notions, and I would do a lot of like maintenance instead of what we call progressive overload. And so if I can parallel that to building yourself up in this world, it's like people can't see what's happening because they're just maintaining. They can't see any improvement because they're just maintaining. I think that what happened was I stopped normalizing the pain of hard work.
You stopped normalizing the pain of hard work.
So what I'm trying to say is when you're trying to get better at something, it's not going to be pleasant all the time. In fact, it's going to create a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
With your self-esteem thinking like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I failed at this, and you start looking at, and it triggers that negative brain circuitry that I was talking about.
Right.
And you can go down that path.
Yeah.
Well, while I'm doing this, I finally realized like, wait a minute, like I'm not trying as hard as I can. Therefore, I'm working and I'm feeling pain and I'm like going through this stuff, but I'm not getting to the place I want to because I have not normalized. I'm like, pain is bad. I'm just going to endure this small amount of pain. And I think this is enough. You feel me? This is mediocrity I'm talking about. Literally mediocrity. And so that's what I learned. Finally drilled it into my head. And so I say, I've been doing this for a very long time. And so we just got done saying we don't really give ourselves credit for the journey. So I want to give myself credit for the journey.
Hell yeah.
I've finally gotten to the place where I can literally building it, just day by day, pushing as hard as I can. And then finally, oh, lo and behold, I see the work that I've done before me. And so I think about when you're talking about like, oh, well, it's only been really recent, but you must have been doing work, right? And for you personally,
I was doing the work.
Yeah.
I was for sure definitely doing the work. Yeah.
All that just to say, you know what I mean? It is that all that work, we have to acknowledge it. Otherwise, it doesn't. What's the process?
It's true.
The process is important. John Reyes was talking to me yesterday about like the process, and I'm writing a song for my goddaughter, and I use like white noise, and I also record myself playing violin, and the sound of my breathing actually happens to be on that track. And one of our friends came through, Flex One. He came through while I was putting down a track, and we made something together. And I played him that track, and he said something really beautiful. He said, that just proves that there's still a human engine behind it, which is really poignant in today's modern times. AI. We were talking about that before too.
Yeah.
So let's give ourselves credit for the work that we do. Let's kind of like orient ourselves in a way where we can both grow strong and be humble and still access the roots.
Let's take a deep breath.
Yeah. Whew. Thank you.
So we can do that. Yeah, no, I'm here. I am right there with you. I do appreciate you just reminding us that is like a really valuable thing to do in the process of doing the work. Was that your original question?
Yeah, I mean, the original thing was just being able to acknowledge. I think what I'm getting at is like, when we operate in our lives, a lot of times all we think about are these significant moments, right? But there's so much in between and struggle. And the thing I think I wanted to bring out the most was normalizing that pain, right?
Yeah.
People are running away, and that's what I did before, and that's why I saw myself not making progress in myself, because I ran away instead of facing that pain and then normalize. This is what working hard feels like. Oh yeah. I did that when I sat in the practice room for 4 hours a day. Yeah,
it's also just what like living feels like. Living is painful. Like really living is not meant to be joyful. Like there's a reason why there's so many religious texts, there's so many artistic depictions of like earth looking like hell. Like an earth being, it's like, it's painful to be living. I like your, like this metaphor of like, this kind of a metaphor of like maintenance versus like progressive overload, because as you know, I am a trainer. and also something I'm working on getting certified. So I'm not officially certified yet, and I don't want to mislead people about my scope of practice,
Sure.
ethically speaking.
Okay, so this is not actual fitness.
I have a research background as like a sociology and anthropology person, so they really drill in ethics to you. They're like, what is ethical? Do not lie to people about your scope of practice. And but the reason why I got into being a personal trainer and a fitness coach is so that I could bring that intersection of like not only like cultural inclusion of like, I mean, just speaking for myself, like my own Asian American experience and the kind of traumas that come with that, but also as a person who does a lot of trauma informed work and looking at that from a like modern day sociological lens, which takes into account the fact that like, you know, as a society, there's so many things that influence the ways in which we feel like the only way to operate is to grind really hard, but also at the same time, like grinding is a part of living, but for some reason pain is not, which is weird. And in trauma and in the world of like healing, just would be a very like grand overglossing of it all. But in the world of healing practice and trauma work, we would call that literally just misattunement and misalignment to yourself. It's like I love that metaphor because like I, as a working trauma informed fitness coach, but I am licensed as a regular fitness coach. I'm just not licensed in my trauma informed weightlifting certificate yet, which is a separate accreditation.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. But I try to really emphasize that dialogue in training sessions because so much, like I think anybody who's been in the weightlifting community for a while will like talk about like this, what's called like the plateau. And the plateau for the longest time was known as like, yeah, basically you got to a point where like you hit your newbie gains. Newbie gains is like, oh, it didn't work out. And your body's like, whoa, endorphin kick. I'm still young and spry, so I'll build muscles. And then you build a whole muscle, but then all of a sudden you hit maintenance. Yeah. Because now you're being consistent, you're doing the things, you're dieting, you have a consistent program, yeah. And then you hit maintenance, but then you hit your plateau, and all of a sudden everything feels really hard. You find it really hard to get that same rate of efficient gains because now you're at maintenance. And then what people end up doing is that they start trying to like push themselves like harder and harder. Like they try to mentally push themselves harder and harder and harder from a place of shame where they're like, why can't I? Why is there work?
I'm not good enough to
deserve
this. Like,
so what, and then but then what people need to get to and where the conversation is shifting in the world of training and weightlifting and health and wellness as a part of like having a relationship with your training is that piece about progressive overload. Like it's really important. It's like I try to emphasize to these clients about like if you come in to train, like yes, like it's great that you have a goal right now to whatever, to like run really fast and to like basically get to a program of maintenance, but you should kind of you should be prepared to anticipate. That's the same thing. Those are two same words. You should anticipate like that moment of when progressive overload will need to be your focus.
Right.
Yeah. And like how that's going to be an ebb and flow kind of thing. Whether that means, and for me, like what that progressive overload ebb and flow stage looks like is like, I think that's like the most exciting part about training. And also like, and this is the metaphor, I think it could be applied to any process of art, of creativity, of a business you're trying to build. It's like, that's where you get to really be like, what do I really enjoy doing? Like now that I've built the habit of putting out songs, I've built the habit of like putting my brand out there, just like building the muscle to be like, I'm selling myself. I think that my art has value. How do I now be like, okay, but now what do you actually really want to do with this skill?
I think that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Because I have another parallel to that actually. And it's on the fitness side too. But I think that the metaphor of like attunement is so unbelievably powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So when I fucked off and moved to Oregon, the thing I focused on, I actually I didn't touch my violin for 3 years. Right? I think I tried to play it once when I was like drunk, and it made me even more sad. I was like, oh, it's been 3 years, and I'm not even giving myself a chance, right? But I went out there, and the thing I focused on was boxing. So I was out there trying to meet a certain weight. At the time, I think I was fighting light welter, and I was supposed to hit 141, but I couldn't get below 143. And so you'll see why when I tell you what I was doing. Right? No carb diet, no sugar. I was running 8 miles a day. I was training, and guess what happened? I fatigued myself. I got sick because I was not attuned. Because I needed some goodness in my life. I needed a little bit of fat. I needed a little bit of sugar.
You needed energy. You needed this thing called ATP. You needed joy.
Bet.
You needed joy.
I really did, and I needed body joy, right?
Yeah.
And
body joy is carb.
Yeah.
It's like an immediate thing. Just like I'm also a nutrition coach, but like so like
satiation.
That's well, and also like with the carbs immediately give your body just like that energy high.
Yeah.
Because it digests it really quick. And also carbs are yummy. Yeah. They're fucking yummy.
And so to just drive that home, like afterwards I was like, okay. I kind of maybe understand what happened. So I started to eat a little bit more fat, allowing more things into my diet. And I lost, and then my body was like, oh, bet. Okay, we have a little bit of fuel. Yeah. Let's go. And I dropped to like 139 or 138. I was like, I did not want to lose this much weight. But once I became aligned with how my body works, with how everything actually, how I fed myself, right? Everything fell into place. Yeah. Into overdrive, and all the work that I had done, just the gates opened. So it's.
And then you went back to playing violin?
When I came home, yeah. And actually, I'm not gonna lie, I went back to playing violin out of necessity because I needed to make money when I came home. And so I went back to teaching. I got my old job back, thankfully. And I found a new love in playing and teaching specifically. And I think that how you describe what you try to portray to people in their fitness goals is similar to what I try to portray to the kids and adults that I teach in violin. Is that, right? To connect that to, like, if you're good at this picky ass instrument, I'd challenge anybody to bring me an instrument that's harder and more picky than the violin, because every tiny little thing you do matters. You're not pressing buttons. You know what I mean? It's not just timing. It is how you are. If you're stressed out, you sound stressed out when you play.
That shit's hard. I tried that shit as a kid. Right? I'm not. That's why I became a singer.
Let's go. Oh, well, actually, violin was made to imitate the human voice.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
And actually, those two are the closest things to each other. Right? If you, the bow is the breath, and the strings are the vocal cords. The hand is the breath support. Right, and the breath control. So, all of it's like kind of intertwined.
We have very similar paths that brought us where we were. I won't get into it because I know we're like short on time, but I also went to, like, I was singing for so long and competing in choral competitions and doing these solo shows, like as a youth. And then when I went to Washington, that's when I stopped doing that, and then I started doing fitness and weightlifting. And then when I came back, it became this whole thing where I started singing again because I needed it for my own healing. Straight up out of necessity. And then here I am as a trainer. So very interesting.
Your story, like, again, I want to go back to your story is so beautiful.
Because,
especially the way that you told it. Right. I also, from working with you on the grant, right?
Yes.
I also found that you have a really sort of like beautiful literary mind, where I think that you are really succinct with what you say and you choose your words carefully, and they really mean what you mean them to mean. And I feel that too. And I really appreciate that about you. And I think that a lot of people kind of like there are two big camps, right? One is Camp Rain and one is Camp Heart.
Mm-hmm.
And, right? And through your family, I feel like you have both.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right? So being the one to be parentized, I forgot the word.
Parentified.
Parentified. When you're parentified, it puts you up here.
Yeah.
Because you have to survive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But often those parents are all heart.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to articulate themselves in a way
Yeah.
that teach you why things are going on.
Yeah.
Why this is happening.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a beautiful combination of both of those things. And I feel like if anything, your journey through like self-acceptance and confidence and just like finding your way through life is one that tells a story of somebody who can overcome things just being themselves, which is the best thing, right?
That is the highest compliment that I could ever receive.
But we're
and
all
I think
this
anyone,
way, right?
yeah,
We're all humans, and I think
Yeah.
once we can, like you said, align ourselves, once y'all can find that pathway, there's no way you won't be successful.
I am team like lean into yourself. I just think that there's like I've never met someone, including myself, but it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work for myself. But I've never met anyone who like really leans into themselves and was sorry about it. Like whatever comes out of that, whether you're trying to apply that so that you can like whatever, like accomplish, like build your biz or like get your art out there or be an exceptional parent. Like I've never met anyone that was like, I feel so ashamed that I leaned into myself and like thoroughly explored myself.
Yeah. I think the people that are just don't talk about it.
Right.
Because they're ashamed.
I feel like people who also are I feel like people who
There's a dark side to it. You
people
know
who
what I mean?
lean into
who
it.
lean into themselves, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm being myself," and then, "Oh, boohoo!" Like this person
Yeah.
didn't have a good,
Yeah.
didn't have good social interaction with this
Yeah,
person,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're like whipping themselves.
Yeah.
And that's still, in a way, kind of leaning into yourself.
Yeah. It is, but I also feel like people who lean into themselves also won't talk about it because they're just like, I'm at peace.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to say this, like when you lean into yourself, I mean like really like just like collapse into yourself. Actually, maybe that's the better word. Because I would say like the time that I had to really like do the work in therapy and be in a state, like in the time that I was in a constant state of panic because I was in so much emotional distress, that was like not just me leaning into myself, that was me like literally allowing myself to crumble and fall into myself, because only through that process do you get the chance to figure out whether or not you can pull yourself out and then back onto the other side, which is super scary. It is. But like also what I try to tell everybody, maybe everybody on this podcast, but also on the stream.
Yeah.
But I think that it's so powerful to be able to know you can pull yourself out of that kind of shit.
Yes.
Like once you're able to do it, you are untouchable. Like in my world right now, as a person who has been through that kind of trauma, and I'm only like 26,
Yeah.
I'm like, and then I had to go through a second wave of that with like dealing with grief. As you know, like my mother and my grandmother passed away in the past year, and there's a second wave of that. I'm like, okay, well now at this point, like the next 67, probably 80 years, because we're Asian, we don't die.
Until we turn into dragons.
Yeah, so like the next 80 years for me, I'm like, I mean, it'll just be life. It'll just be a regular amount of painful and grief. I don't know when it happens, but like I feel confident that like there's some part of me that will always be able to hold me on the other side.
Like you ever had a choice.
Like I ever had a choice, but yeah. Right, but like, yeah, it's like the most powerful thing to have that kind of sense of self, like love and fulfillment, and to be able to ground yourself in that way. Also, because also once you arrive at that, not only does it feel so powerful, but it feels so like that is true abundance. Because once you do that, like I feel very confident now to express my boundaries and to be like excessively compassionate and giving to others. Because I'm like, I am so within myself, I'm happy to give away whenever.
Yeah.
because I have plenty to give now because I've secured enough for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the last thing that I worked on recently within myself was that balance of giving and receiving, and not overly protecting myself from pain of people not accepting, people taking advantage.
That's hard.
Right?
People are shitty out here.
People
People can be. Yeah.
I think working on both sides of that, where you're like not afraid to speak your truth, meaning, like I said, I've said this like a billion times already, but once you've built up your own strength, you've built up your own self-esteem, those things kind of fall away a little bit more, where you're not so worried that like, oh, I hurt this person because I said this, or they made like a small little adjustment in their face, and I'm like, oh, this was a bad social engagement now, right? And then you're like,
I hella feel you. I totally get those too.
right?
Yeah,
And of
yeah.
course, and especially if you're growing up in survival mode,
Yeah.
you're taught to pay
To
attention
look for those
things.
little cues because I'm like, I don't know.
I'm out here by myself.
Yeah.
I gotta be liked.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I get by, right?
Totally. Yes.
So if you're one of those people, it's difficult to get past that hump. But once you start doing this work and you start thinking on a different level, that I think that is key to my life and my balance. Is being able to just focus on the right things, and really, all that just to say, like, I got my priorities straight.
Yep.
That's what that means. To me, when people say that, you got to get your priorities straight. You know, fuck what other people are
Who's saying
thinking,
it
like
that to you like that?
mostly me.
Okay.
I say everybody, but yeah.
I was like, who's coming at you like that right now?
It's just
Okay.
me, yeah.
Okay.
Inner self-talk, right?
Yeah.
The toughest
I'm
on
glad I
yourself.
asked though, because now you know that's you. That's just you.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm like that too. Yeah.
So, I want to ask you one final question,
Okay.
and I asked BB from Damn Events.
Uh-huh.
Oh, what's up, Carl? What's up? Oh, the mahjong shirt. Thank you. Yeah.
They're like, yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's a
this.
set. It's a set. I asked BB, who is like a huge queen in this, in our culture, in our culture of the East Bay,
Yeah.
in the Bay Area at large,
Uh-huh.
and I asked Jamie Cardenas from Magpie Alchemy.
Yes. Yes.
So now that we've established that we're high functioning adults and
Yes.
we're kind of pushing ourselves always in a better place, and we're doing the work and doing the lifting and staying healthy and all this and trying to stay emotionally full and colorful and whatnot. When you're in a situation where you're very stressed out, either socially, emotionally, mentally, maybe all three, what's your go-to to calm yourself down? Or is it just a reflex at this point?
I will literally just disengage for a strong 36 hours is usually what it is. I get asked this, I was asked this by Hannah, who was on the stream a few weeks ago, who will also be doing a Hokodama workshop at our block party next week.
On the 20th.
Yes, at Papa's house block party. Come through.
11 to 5.
Celebrating API Heritage Month. Come through. We'll be there.
Let's go.
But like she texted me one time. She was like, "Do you ever feel just like so socially drained and feeling like you want to like hermit for like 2 weeks?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "Actually, no. I'm someone who like has like as I am just someone who's like very efficient, but I think also it is a reflex at this point where I just know what I need. And I think because I'm like constantly doing the work, right? Like not just waiting until a burnout moment to be like, oh, now I need a break. I think because like I am constantly kind of checking myself to be like, am I in alignment? Am I in attunement with my needs right now? And like, what are my priorities? When I do have those off days where I'm like, oh, but today though, in spite of doing all that, it's too much. I usually just go 36 hours. I'm not looking at my phone at all. Like I will turn off all the notifications. I will be like, do not disturb. Like and I've always been this way, but no matter what job I have, even if I was in school, if I was in corporate work, I'll just be like, I'm sick. I'm not afraid to take a sick day. I was like, I'm out. You will be fine for 36 hours. And then usually I just will have like a main character day. And I do like to go outside. I'll do something at home, and then maybe I'll do something at home. But like usually it's like I want to go to a neighborhood or go on a hike where like there's just, I want to put in an environment where like there's a high probability that no one will know me, or no one feels engaged, like feels curious. They don't want to talk to me. They don't know who I am. And then I'll just like let myself wander. Yeah. And that looks like, you know, like maybe like if that were to happen tomorrow, I'd probably be like, okay, so I'm gonna turn off my phone. I'm gonna wake up. I'm probably gonna walk down on this block, and I think there's some coffee shops in there. I'm gonna stumble, and I'm just gonna let myself look at the selection. And people are probably gonna be like, can I help you? And I'll be like, I'm not ready yet. And they're like, okay. And then people will be like, are you in line? I'll be like, nope. And I'll just take all the time to sit there and be like, take 20 minutes to order a coffee. Then I wait there. Maybe someone will talk to me and I'll acknowledge them and be like, And then I will drive to Pacifica.
Yeah.
Love that drive. So beautiful.
When you come around and you see the beach.
Yeah. And I'm like, I love driving. I'm a swoosher. So I love like swooshing down there and be like, California lifestyle. Da, 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 da. And then I take a little, and then I put my hiking boots on. I just slowly like tie my shoelaces and really just tune into the senses and all that way, right? And then I like walk up the hike and I'll be like, I don't even know where the heck I'm going. I just gotta get down before sundown. And just do that.
That really speaks to me. I think that I would do the same thing because we talked about travel. It's really akin to travel, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And I feel like being able to take your time, like, oh, by the way, you saying that gives me more awareness about how Jen operates too. Because she's a long orderer. She considers her options. So it takes her a long time. What do you mean by long order? It takes her a long time to figure out what she wants to eat. When she gets to the front of the line, she's like taking her time. Yeah. And when you put it in that context, it makes me want to honor that more because I'm more of a New York bagel shop. Like I want to have my order ready before I get to the front of the line because I don't want to feel that anxiety. I think that has roots in people pleasing. And with her, now that you say that, it puts into perspective, and I want to honor her process more and not give her anxiety in that moment.
Miss Jen.
So thank you for saying that. And thank you for sharing and being vulnerable and just like being willing to come out here and just like put your energy out on the table.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I feel like if I could, I would just do that stuff every day. I would just like walk around. That's my regular mode. I'm a very slow moving person. I like to appreciate what's around me.
Same.
Like to the smallest little detail.
Same.
I think it comes from being an only child.
Because you're so bored. You're so fucking bored.
So
all
the time.
Yeah. Like I see, like when I was recently in New York, I saw like a corn on the cob, an aging corn on the cob, under construction, like under the path, and I stared at it. People were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What's that corn on the cob doing on here? Like, we're out here in Crown Heights. Like, why is there unhappy? Why has it been aging? How did it get here?"
Yo, what's the story? Yeah, exactly.
I totally do that.
One missing, the small details.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to. I love being in spaces where we can just share each other's stories. It's so valuable, and it's so like it's good food for the soul, man. Yeah, it's good hot pot for the soul. Take that, chicken for the soup. Chicken soup for the soul.
Oh, let's go.
Hot pot for the soul.
Yeah, that's the Asian version.
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's again. Now even more so, I'm glad that we got to sit down and take this time.
Yeah.
The time that we needed and just really spread out. So
hell yeah.
I think this is a good place to stop.
Yep.
We talked about a lot of good things. We talked about things that are prevalent in our life, and we talked about a journey. We talked about holding our own power and being comfortable in our own skin. So, just want to leave you guys with basically like, especially all you Asian Americans out there that are watching or gonna watch, just please acknowledge the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
No matter what level it's on, and don't it's like if you celebrate yourself, it doesn't mean you're conceited. Can we just say that out loud? Just because you celebrate yourself doesn't mean that you're conceited. Even though that girl in middle school told me I was conceited, and I had to go look it up in the dictionary. And the next day I came back and I was like, "Hey,
let's look her up on MySpace and see what she's doing now."
She's good.
Okay.
She has a family. She's good.
Okay.